Howdy Buckaroonies. Have you ever noticed how there are a lot of weirdly specific music genres out there like Simpson Wave or vegan straight edge, pirate metal, black MIDI, mallcore, witch house, and other strangely specific microgenres that people with nothing better to do love to sit around and debate on internet forums? So recently the folks over at UVI got in touch with me about their new library called World Suite 2, and I was thinking about how I've really wanted to play that new Spyro remastered trilogy, but have had absolutely no time to do so. And along that same line, I was thinking about how a lot of classic video game soundtracks have a lot of different world instruments, probably because a lot of the early Workstation rompler things had some world instruments in them that seemed to be just crammed into every video game soundtrack I played as a kid. So with that in mind, I packed my bags for my flight to nowhere to go around the world in terms of instruments and create a brand new weird microgenre of my own, PlayStation Core. It's also a strange feeling that at this very moment, I am simultaneously the first, only, best, and worst PlayStation Core producer on the entire planet and in the known universe, which is also kind of neat. With that spirit in mind, today I'm going to teach you how to make PlayStation Core because I am now the world's leading authority on the genre. If you end up making some PlayStation Core of your own, feel free to send it my way because I'd love to check it out. Or better yet, I challenge you to make your own weirdly specific microgenre and then send me the results. So let's hop into the DAW and make some PlayStation Core. Here we have the PlayStation Core project. As you can see, it's a pretty simple arrangement consisting of just some repeating elements and just a couple of distinct sections, and it's meant to loop indefinitely over and over because a lot of early games had these kind of themed areas and levels where you would have one main kind of song that just repeats over and over in the background. Obviously, one of the biggest considerations here is the theme of nostalgia. So beyond incorporating your obligatory vinyl crackle and tape noise, I wanted to find sounds that not only fit the theme of like a forest level or whatever, but also felt kind of like the early Rompler workstation stuff or like the general MIDI library. Lucky enough, World Suite 2 has 369 instruments, a little over 65,000 samples, and somewhere north of 10,000 loops and phrases, which is an insane amount of content and made it perfect to create this little project. Let's kick things off by diving through and taking a look at the instrumentation. So as you can tell, it's pretty straightforward in terms of instrumentation. It's just a lot of classic sounds that I guess inspire the idea of the forest theme, you know, very earthy wood sounds and stuff like that. The loops in World Suite are actually really easy to work with as well. You're not locked into keeping them in the workstation, which I appreciate. It's nice to be able to drag them on an audio form, so you can find a loop and just drag it right into your DAW, and there you go. Once I had all these parts figured out, obviously the next step is to arrange them. Now, a lot of early video game music is relatively repetitive and kind of works in little sections, and it's meant to loop indefinitely because it's just kind of idle stuff in the background that goes on over and over and over. One of the other limitations I tried to keep myself working within was like a low instrument count and keeping things pretty simple and short, because early video games, there wasn't a lot of memory. You know, you didn't get 150 gigabytes, you only got a little bit of information, so your music had to be pretty compressed and pretty short so as to not take up a ton of space on the disc. In this case, I made it about 2 minutes and some change long and just created some very simple sections where I change instrumentation basically every section and then kind of roll back to the main theme at the end so it starts over, and that way we get this kind of indefinite loop of the same theme. Once I had all that set and got everything mixed and leveled out, it was time to master the track. First, I kick things off with Magnetite here from Black Rooster Audio. This is a really cool tape plug, and I actually got this for free because of my Motu interface, or maybe it was my Novation Peak. I think there's some kind of like plugin collective, so I got this for free, and it's actually a pretty decent tape simulation. Next up, a PSP Oldtimer ME. This is just for some classic gluey style master compression with a relatively fast attack just to kind of squeeze things down a bit. Of course, no mastering job is complete without Vintage Warmer 2, so this is just the default. I added a bit of drive, a bit of knee, and then adjusted the low and high, and that was really it. Finally, for the mastering EQ, I've got PSP Noble Q here. I'm a huge fan of this EQ. I love the way this thing sounds and just what it does to a master bus. So I attenuated the high end starting at, I guess, 6K. I added a little bit of 6K here just to sort of brighten things up, but not really, and then a little tiny bit of attenuation on the low end at about 70 hertz. The basses were just a little overwhelmingly deep, so that just backs that off a touch. The limiter, as always, is Xenon. No surprise there. I didn't really touch anything at all here. I just left this as it was to catch any peaks, and because this is meant to be background music, it's not that loud, so there weren't really any peaks. This is just kind of the final end of chain thing. Now, at this point, when I listen back to this, everything sounds really clean and like a properly made track. Now, this sounds fine, but it doesn't really give me PlayStation Core vibes. It just kind of sounds like any random video game music backdrop. So I used bit crushing. I've actually got two different bit crushers here at two different settings, and this is just kind of emulating old crappy hardware. Now, believe it or not, there are some audiophiles out there who believe one of the early original PlayStation models is like one of the best CD players you can possibly get. So it actually did have pretty good audio quality, especially for the time. But since this is kind of nostalgia stuff, I wanted to bit crush it and make it sound kind of lo-fi and gritty. For this, I'm using Kilohearts Bit Crush, which is a really excellent bit crushing plugin you should definitely own. And I've got one here, sample rate set down to 18K, the bits at 12, I believe. And then I've got another at 11.2 with the bits at 8. Now, these numbers aren't really too specific. The 11.2 is taking the idea of a 22 kilohertz sample rate and dividing it in half and just making it 8-bit. And then I use the dither, ADC, and DAC just to kind of shape it a bit to get rid of some of the hiss and make it a little bit more artifacty. For the more kind of hi-fi version, I used 18 kilohertz sample rate, 12 bits, and then adjusted the DAC just to get it sitting right. So I'll just show you both of these quickly. So the 18K 12-bit version sounds like this. And if we pop over to the 11.2 8-bit version, so that one's a bit more dirty and maybe a bit more leaning into the lo-fi side of things. And yeah, that is how I made the world's first PlayStation Core track. Let's take a listen to the final result. And that has been my time with UVI World Suite 2. As you would expect with anything from UVI, all the instruments sound great, everything is sampled in pretty meticulous detail. There's a lot of cool key group features to get different articulations and playing styles out of all the instruments, so it really is a very solid all-in-one library for just about everything you need in terms of world instruments, covering the classic stuff to some of the more obscure stuff, I guess, at least for me, that I've just never even heard of. This library works with UVI Falcon as well as the free UVI Workstation, which you saw me using here today. It comes in at $2.99 and is a beast of a library. Now, is this library for everyone? I think it kind of depends. Much like UVI's Toy Suite, I think there's kind of a specific target audience for this. I don't think it's for every producer, but if you work in the film or game industry, I think this is a really great solution to having just a go-to library of world instrument sounds and loops that you might need. Otherwise, if your music incorporates a lot of world instruments or just kind of different styles and things like that, this is a really solid library that covers all the bases, at least I can imagine. And I think that wraps everything up for this video, so thanks for watching. Big shout out to UVI for hooking me up with World Suite 2. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to send me your tracks if you end up making something similar in the PlayStation Core genre or your own weird, obscure micro genre. And yeah, I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon.